I've recently seen a great deal of discourse around the subject of the way that right-wing women are treated online by right-wing activists. And this has, from what I've seen, happened mostly on Twitter, which is rarely the best place to have any kind of productive conversation. What's worse is that the conversation about the right-wing conception of the romantic relationships between men and women is not mature, and is being undertaken by people who probably don't actually have all that much experience of them personally, and so have to go from the examples of others. I think that actually I do have some authority on this subject, and I have to say I would never talk to my wife in the way that I see right-wing men online speak to women that they view to be on their own team. And I think that you do build your character by your habits. The conversation, which is what I'm going to generously call it, mostly consists of centre-right women who are essentially 90s liberals in their beliefs, being attacked by the more hardline right-wing Twitter anons. Put simply, this quite unpleasant fiasco basically boils down to the question, is there an honourable place for women on the right? To which the answer had better be yes, or else the right is going to die a painful and embarrassing death of irrelevance, as it alienates half of the population and then wonders why it keeps losing elections. Whatever the repeal the 19th crowd wants in their heart of hearts, women are not about to lose the vote anytime soon, and so shrieking about how degenerate modern women are over and over and over is not going to win you any friends. Whether these people like it or not, whatever it is we call democracy is probably going to be here for the foreseeable future. Women as a voting bloc will matter, and so courting their vote matters. Put simply, if the right doesn't find a way to telegraph its values to women, it is going to continue losing. Moreover, I think that right-wing thought leaders and the Twitter anons who act as foot soldiers for right-wing ideals really need to learn how to regulate their trigger fingers, because I'm seeing a lot of what amounts to friendly fire going on, and I don't think it's decent. The left are actually really good at telegraphing their ideals to young women, which is why they keep winning. They promise women liberation, not from physical constraint, but from shame. It used to be that the things many young women now do openly were done in secret in the past, which kept them to a tolerably minimum level because people used to take a dim view of such activities, and this reduced their proliferation. However, now it is completely normal for women to simply be indecent on a daily basis and not consider what they do to be morally questionable at all. This kind of dress in the gym, for example, is practically a whore's uniform. It is as maximally revealing as it is possible to be, advertising all the goods, as it were, and when objected to, the person objecting becomes accused of being a pervert of some kind, as if perversion itself isn't widely celebrated. And that is to say nothing of what the OnlyFans generation posts on the internet. Even the things that young women post that aren't pornography seem positively indecent. I can't even imagine how strange and bewildering such messaging is for young men who are just arriving into manhood. If women post this sort of stuff in public, what does it say about how they want to be treated in private? And it's hard to believe that the debauched nature of the modern woman isn't directly connected to the surge of red pill content creators, as this state of affairs clearly isn't fair on young men. All of the onus to behave decently has been placed on young men, while young women are encouraged to be as libertine as they please. While I wouldn't call them right-wing necessarily, many of the red pill critiques rest on traditionalist priors, which have been formulated into a set of principles extracted from the lived realities of the generations which came before them. The problem, when general behaviours are abstracted into principles to be dogmatically parroted at people on the internet, is that it all takes on a very artificial tone, and just comes across as mean-spirited. Twitter warriors browbeating young women who don't hate men for not being what amounts to willing domestic slaves is not exactly a winning argument, and the hyper-masculine way that this presents itself must only be off-putting for any other young woman who is looking at the left with a sceptical eye and is curious on where else she might find social acceptance and guidance as she moves through her life. The Twitter Anons don't come across as rugged, competent, heroic warrior monks who will protect their women from the wolves when they're purity testing women on Twitter. They come across like resentful and terminally online incels, whether that is what they are or not. And I would venture that most of the young men behind these Twitter accounts are actually not incels, but they also do not have what they most desire: a loving wife and family. And this isn't a slight against them. Society is set up for them not only to fail, but to suffer in the process, to be humiliated, to slog through life as a single white male dog's body, carrying the privileged minority classes above them while they are tongue-lashed by their burden about their privilege. It's a terrible thing, and I do not blame them at all for being angry with this situation, and it isn't surprising that they have arrived at the point where they are not willing to regulate themselves over the issues. However, it's unhealthy to see women as the enemy. I'm not saying that modern women are necessarily respectable, but acting as if women just need to be put into a Handmaid's Tale situation is not appealing for most of them, actually, and doesn't tend to bring them around to a right-wing way of thinking. And I really don't respect the argument that Twitter is a male-coded gladiatorial arena in which women have no business, either. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter at all. Everyone who wants to be part of the dialogue uses Twitter. If you want to have male-only spaces in which people can engage in verbal sparring matches, go ahead, but Twitter isn't a male-only space. It's a very, very public space, and, as I have learned firsthand, you should watch what you say on it very carefully, because everyone can, and probably will, see it. The problem that the centre-right women have is that right-wing Anons are not wrong in their critiques of modern womanhood. Their complaints have teeth, and the women themselves know it. In many cases, these women themselves will be ashamed of at least some of their past behaviour, and wish they had made better choices. But the past cannot be changed, and the internet is forever. So berating women for the same mistakes, even after they may have mended their ways, keeps them trapped in the same horrible place. And it's not somewhere that anyone wants to be. It's no wonder, then, that right-wing women might drift leftwards over time. If right-wing men shame them for their past behaviour in a feminist culture, why wouldn't they be drawn to the movement that will liberate them from the tyranny of judgment? The problem that the centre-right women have is that they can't simply live in the fancy play park of centrist liberalism forever, and at some point will either need to mature out of it or commit to it. And the right is making it very difficult to mature out of it, and very easy for them to justify committing to it. If representation does matter, then we ought to consider what representatives we hold up as models of womanhood, and then begin from where we are to create a path to where we want to be. This means that purity testing just has to stop, because nobody is pure. We are all a product of a debauched culture that got to us the moment we came out of the womb, raised us in sin, and tainted us probably irredeemably. If we want to improve things, appealing to a perfect and non-existent state is just silly and unreflective of the real world in which we all live. Beginning from where we are and taking sensible steps forward one after another in the right direction is the only way to climb out of this mess. I would suggest that the right-wing ideal of womanhood is encapsulated in what it is to be a lady. If right-wing men want women to be ladylike and marriageable, then they have to transmit that message in a way that women will generally find appealing, and then personally cultivate their own chivalrous natures, which provides honour to women who are sympathetic to their ideals. It has to be something beautiful. It has to contain the promise of happiness. If the right is going to attract women, it has to show them that there is a way that the right as a whole will honour them. And if right-wing women are seen to be treated with kindness and respect, I think they will grow into the form that the right most desires, and this will ennoble the men themselves. Other women might come to see the right-wing Anons as actually being the heroic guardians of Western civilization that they wish they were, and support them, rather than being disgusted by their toxic behaviour online. Perhaps, maybe, the damage to male-female relations caused by feminism could begin to be repaired.